Hello and welcome to another Panic Fest Presents panel. Today I'm joined by two individuals from Arrow to talk about Arrow Player and their new streaming service that's for genre fiends. Today I'm joined by two people. Who am I joined with today in this virtual panel?
So I'm Daniel Perry from Arrow. I head up all things digital. So I usually get booed and hissed by all the Blu-ray physical buyers a lot of the time. But so I kind of look after our overall digital business, but also look after our new service Arrow, which obviously has a lot of our kind of new films and our library films and tons of extra stuff as well. And that's kind of what I do. Oh, I think Louise.
I'm Louise. I work with Daniel at Arrow. I'm on the marketing team. So along with the kind of the Arrow side, I also work on the events, the social media, and across the life cycle of our releases from kind of theatrical, Blu-ray and digital.
Cool. Well, let's talk about Arrow as a streaming service, because this launched, at least in the US, in October, I believe, of 2020, which is kind of crazy when you talk about all these streaming platforms launching over the last couple of years. You guys are on towards the end of, I guess, this current launches. Why now, and what is Arrow doing differently to set themselves apart from things like Shudder, for example?
Well, we've been kind of doing this in the UK for about 4 years now. We've had a version of a streaming service for, I'd say, I think it's like May 2017 we launched. And since then, we've been just kind of developing and learning a lot about this space and, continuing to do the thing that we're kind of more well known for, which is obviously our kind of physical Blu-rays and these incredible kind of deluxe editions that we do. And during that whole time, just seeing kind of what's out there, but also in particular, more so what we could do, something a bit different that we could potentially offer. And I think when we kind of assessed the landscape of what was going on, you're kind of talking about giant streaming services like Netflix, or, I mean, again, even people like Shudder have obviously grown to just a ginormous size now, doing some incredible stuff for kind of genre films. We really still felt that there was something very much missing around not only people, fighting over, film titles and exclusivity windows and all these other things, and kind of missing out on that whole idea of, what we do within our Blu-ray space, having a more premium kind of feel to the approach, making sure you can, in a sense, explain the story of the films a bit better with, lots of kind of interviews and documentaries and extras, basically, which we do a lot on the service. But in particular, I think one of the most important things that we've been developing is this platform as a tool for new and upcoming filmmakers to not only showcase their films in a really cool way where we can elevate their titles better than any other platform can, and we're confident in saying that, our approach is we treat every single one of these films as if it is a Marvel movie. We kind of treat it as in it's big artworks front center on the service, lots of collaboration with the filmmakers, lots of additional bonus extras that you can have from interviews and short films and everything else. And I think what we wanted to do mostly was we saw what was being done out there, and we also, most importantly, saw what was not being done out there, or things that could be done a little bit better. And that's kind of what the journey's been this last couple of years in particular, but I would say the last 12 months, when we kind of started to pull this idea together a little bit more solidly up to now, it's really kind of worked in our favor that we do things in a way that no one else does, and we actually plan and really do things with the service that no one else can. And I think it means that when people come on board and want to kind of try us out, they kind of see something really different and really fun and really interesting. So that was kind of at least the initial kind of kickoff for it at this time. And I'd say when you look at the state of the market right now, even when it comes away from those bigger platforms like Amazon and Netflix, I think when you go down into these niche services, I think it's not, people aren't looking just for what is new title A or what is new title B. What people are looking for now is a better experience, and that's where we really kind of try to make sure that we stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I guess I've never really thought about the word experience and anything other than, you know, how the menus kind of function, and not necessarily how what options I'm giving. You know, as somebody who's collected movies from VHS days, I've always wanted the special features. You know, even if it's just like a commentary, but especially if there's like the making ofs. And that was the cool thing. You know, even prior to this conversation, when I was an Arrow subscriber and I got on there, I was like, oh, whoa, some of these films have a lot of special features. This is like owning the Blu-ray, which is really neat and definitely a totally different kind of aesthetic and a unique approach, I think, to what streaming can do. Now, I guess you mentioned you guys are acquiring new films, and are exclusive to a number of new independent horror and genre films. What are you looking for in terms of new content?
I think it completely varies. There's quite a few of us on our team who kind of watch these new films and get excited about it. And I think the key is, as long as there's someone to champion the film within our kind of company, it's definitely something we'll have a conversation about. And luckily, we're all quite aligned on kind of a taste level of what's good is what's exciting. So far, we haven't had any disagreements. And it's just, yeah, just finding something a bit unique, a little bit different, and something that maybe wouldn't quite fit on your Shudder or your Netflix, and it's finds a home with us.
The life cycle of films in general has kind of changed. So over the course of the years, you know, it used to be, I mean, not too long ago, you know, we're talking like 15 years ago, movies would have this elongated release where you'd get it announced and you'd eventually see like stills in something like Fangoria or the, you know, a website online. And then you would build anticipation for the theatrical release, which would last at least 3 months, but usually, you know, 15 years ago, it'd be 6+ months. And then maybe 9 to 15 months later, we'd get some home video release. Now it's changed to, you know, some movies are being released on the same day as they are in theaters, big movies and small movies. And that wasn't the case last year, even. When it comes to Arrow, who is known as kind of, you know, the utmost, you know, quality of packaging and film presentations, on a Blu-ray or DVD package, now going to streaming service, does that change at all? I guess change at all in terms of, I guess, how we are going to ingest the Arrow experience and the Arrow brand, or is that going to all be held up on I guess the new products you're picking up and these bonus features and contents?
I think it's a couple of things. I think in particular, you know, you just mentioned a really interesting thing about, you know, how things used to be, you know, that the traditional kind of window, as it were. And, you know, I've been a part of that. You know, I've been working on this digital side of the business for about 12 or 13 years. And, you know, you see a lot of change in that time. And I think in particular, what's fascinating is, you know, you take something like The Stylist, obviously on Lou's background picture, again, Kansas City kind of film. It's, you know, you take something like that was in production a year ago, that we launched on our service 12 months later. That is the state of the world that we're in now. And the fact that we can, you know, do two things. We can keep the standard that people know us for. And I think we hold ourselves to a very high regard when it comes to the presentation of films. If for any reason we feel that it's not perfect, then either we won't do it, or we will kind of do it, and then in a way that we just need to fix that in a few months' time and make it, you know, much better than it was. But it's very rarely that we would go out to anything but, you know, being perfect. But then you add that into, you know, being able to do that at a rapid rate now because of technology. So something like, you know, The Stylist and working with Jill, who, you know, has just been incredible as a kind of figurehead for our own film, and can really help us in understanding how we can kind of get films out more quickly. It means that what we can then do is collaborate with her, work with her around all the extras and all these additional kind of pieces we can bring together. And I think what's so fascinating is when you combine those two things together, it means we can get things out to people way quicker than we used to. And it just means that, you know, we always talk a lot internally about, you know, choice, about that's the key thing that we want to give is people choice. Is if you want this right now and you want to watch this film as quickly as you possibly can, because you've heard all these great things from all the festivals and everything else, this is the service to come to. But you know what, if you want to hold off and get that really deluxe premium Blu-ray experience, then we're going to release that in a few months' time. So I think giving people the choice to sit there and say, well, what do you want to have? And ultimately, the only reason that there's a delay is because there's a production process to create that physical product. That's the only reason why it's taking so long. So it's the effort and times that the team that, you know, have traditionally worked within Arrow kind of working on, and then us with the breakdown of all of those timelines and the ability to go to, you know, to the general audience, if you want to call it like that, much quicker than we've ever been able to, or anyone's ever been able to previously.
So this is going to spin off two kind of discussions I think I'd like to have, which the first one is the consumption of media through streaming services. So historically, because we had such a long pipeline from the buildup to the theatrical release to the buildup of the home video release, there was a lot of conversation, a lot of people, you know, theorizing what a movie might be in their head, right? And then for that eventual like release of watching it, whether it's at home or in the theater, there was just like this a more of a connection, I guess, to the buildup and the overall experience. But now with something like, you know, the Stylist, it took 13 months basically for it to start shooting to be available to watch, which is great in a lot of aspects. But you know, oftentimes now I find myself, what's next, and I kind of hate that about about my experience. So like there are different types of things I have to save for the theater, because I'll view that movie in my head, I'll remember it differently, and the whole experience is just more unique. So the consumption, I guess, of what we're doing, do you think that there's any disconnect with things going so quickly that like they come and go and people will forget about them?
It's down to, I think it's down to the presentation. You know, how do you, you know, how are you going to present this film? You know, the nature of kind of a, you know, a theatrical screening is one that, you know, you get that giant screen, big screen experience with, hopefully, if it's possible, you know, an audience, and that's a really, really cool thing to have. And I don't think anything from our perspective, then when it's safe to do so, we absolutely still will continue to have films in theaters, absolutely. But I think from our perspective, one of the things that's very, very important to us is that if a film like The Stylist is coming on our service, everybody knows about that film. That you know, we're not going to add 62 new releases a month and suddenly it's like, watch this, watch this, watch this, watch this. It's a month where in March, we focused on Jill as a filmmaker. You know, we focused on The Stylist almost like, you know, a franchise, if you want to call it that. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying is we have this very kind of, you know, I guess Disney approach to things, but just with a bunch of crazy movies. Do you know what I mean? Just, yeah. It's a completely different approach that we want to make sure that we aren't about quantity over quality. That we want to be able to give Jill a platform, or we want to give Adam from A Ghost Waits a platform, or Justin, obviously, you know, we've got the film on the service in April. That there's just this ability to do that. It means that, you know, hopefully, and this is something we're really kind of, you know, only now starting to kind of really get the feedback on, is this is the way that we can highlight that filmmaker, highlight those films and all the things that come with it. And the benefits are far greater than just simply either financially or commercially or all these windows. It means that we can give someone like Jill and something like The Stylist, you know, the full support it deserves. And as we grow, it means that when we do that with a film, even, you know, 12 months from now or 2 years from now, that elevation is even higher. And it means that we can actually really spend time collaborating with the filmmakers to make it look really, really cool.
And I think it comes back to what Daniel said earlier as well. It comes down to choice. I think in this day and age, consumers like to have the options. They don't want to be told you can only watch something one way. So just having the option, you can go and see it at the cinema, or you can watch it on streaming, or you can wait for the Blu-ray. It's just all another kind of way that people can just make their own decisions, or just obsessively watch something on every single platform.
Yeah, well, I do appreciate what you guys have started to do, which is you can watch it on Arrow usually first thing, and then the Blu-rays coming. But you also didn't forget about theatrical. You like The Stylist, for example, is playing our festival, but it's played at other festivals, and there'll be an option for a regular theatrical release, at least in the States, which is a good experience for the filmmaker, because, you know, no filmmaker I don't think maybe this will change in 10 years when people grow up. Streaming has been a huge part of their life forever, but a lot of us are analog people who grew up going to theaters, and we make movies to watch in theaters. And certainly, Arrow is built on the experience of, we love cinema, and this is the best way to watch it at home. But we also love movies, and putting out the best possible version for you to watch in theater. So I think from a filmmaker standpoint, and certainly as a theater owner standpoint, I think Arrow is one of the most exciting new partners, because you care about the whole pipeline. Even if it's in kind of a crazy order, it doesn't really matter, because you're right, there is a customer for every, somebody will wait knowing that there's a theatrical, even if it's 3 months later. That is a unique approach. And so is the Marvel thing. When you think about Netflix and now even Shudder, how quickly Shudder has become this kind of giant who's dumping so much new content all the time, because there are a lot of consumers who just want to consume. And that's my overall worry about the industry, is that people will consume so much that they won't talk about movies that of course they'll talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? But are they going to talk about what Prom Night 2, right? Are they gonna remember that movie, or is it just gonna be in the ether, or they have to dig and find it? And hopefully through services like Arrow, those titles will have a real life, a real shelf life, and a place for people to have conversations. I guess, where do you see this?
I think
Go ahead.
Sorry, Kim. No, I was just going to say that just on that point, I think it's a really it's a different approach now. That when you take as you said, just this constant need for a ginormous volume of you said the word, the forbidden word, content. It's the thing that is got its balance between people that just hate films being called that, and at the same time others that kind of it's what it is. Do you know what I mean? It's the world we're in sometimes. But I think that's why it's for us, it's about pressing pause. We've taken a while to come into this space, and there's a reason for that, because it takes a while to approach things the way that we do. And I think being able to in difference to highlighting a filmmaker from 40 years ago, or highlighting a series of films that we feel are very important to talk about, but also most importantly, not take ourselves too seriously with it. Again, we don't want to mention other potential platforms maybe, but I think, the idea of taking yourself too seriously when it comes to, films and this little cliquey group where only these kind of people can like these films, that's not a good experience. I think for us, what we're trying to do, and even just within our own company and what we've done historically is, these films over here that have been in the kind of cult film space for such a long time that we love, they're not just for these groups of people. They're also available for everyone over here. And I think that's what we're trying to do, is reintroduce these films in a different way to do exactly what you've just spoken about. That when you're taking something like Edge of the Axe, or when you're taking a series of films like Clapboard Jungle, obviously as a new release, but the films that we're kind of looking at and bringing into this sphere is all about trying to reintroduce things and package things together like we do in Blu-ray, but trying to do it in a way that could hopefully appeal to slightly different audiences, and that isn't just about people that may have known every Argento film from the 70s. What we want to do is we want to introduce that person that's never seen an Argento film to Argento. That would be quite cool. So
yeah, and I think I'm just going back through how Arrow looks on. I haven't really looked on the website, but because I have the app, but the website's really, really cool, because you can also switch and look at the actual deluxe edition to purchase, which is awesome. And I have to mention, because this is going through the same time, but the Carnage Easter sale is happening right now, and I bought so much shit the other day. It's the best time if you want to splurge. I mean, practically every title, including the 4K trimmers, is available on there. So go find the Carnage sale, because it's insane. And you could pick up a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I think the discovering of new titles, just going through here, you can kind of burn through it faster. There's some titles that have distantly not been available, at least in my life. Like The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, for example, is a notorious title I've heard about throughout my entire life. But maybe I saw it at a video store when I was younger, but then it disappeared. And then I know what I'm gonna get into based on all the things I've heard in my life. But no other platform I don't think has it available. So I add it to my queue, and I'm just gonna prepare myself for what I recall being a biker gang in that, and I'm thrilled about this being able to experience it on Arrow Player. Now I guess the last thing I want to touch on is balancing the streaming platform, your new releases, and continuing to be, for us, it's the criterion of genre films is what Arrow has become. Over the last couple of years, and really in the last 12 months, it's just exploded the amount of titles you guys are releasing, and how exciting some of these are. Things like Tremors might not have been in the catalog 12 or 18 months ago, but that's such a big mainstream title. To see that on there is really going to start bridging the gap in terms of who recognizes Arrow. But where do you see the future of home video going now that we have the ability to have all these, interesting special features on a platform like Arrow?
I think it's just going to help us grow, as we've touched upon. We're never going to kind of leave the Blu-rays behind, and we're thinking of new kind of innovative ways of how we can package things up. We're taking more risks on some kind of wilder titles, and then again we've got a few more kind of bigger titles which will be just Blu-ray only. And then on the kind of the streaming side, we really just want to kind of foster and develop what we're creating. We want to be championing fresh new voices, and we want to just build a really cool platform that's kind of a community that people can just go on there and take a chance and just find some really weird stuff and just have a blast.
I think there's always going to be a place for, all of these ways that people want to see films. It's always going to exist as long as people want to watch things that way. I know that sounds quite obvious, but I think for too long, the film industry, whether that be the studios, whether that be the platforms, have kind of like dragged everyone by the nose around, this is how you now watch it this way. So it's not DVD, it's Blu-ray. It's not Blu-ray, it's digital rental. It's not digital rental, it's subscription. It's not subscription, it's AVOD and blah, 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 blah. And the problem you have is that the way they introduce these new ways of watching things is they sit there and their selling point is, well, it's better than the way you used to do it. And if you don't believe that, then it doesn't matter because we're going to just get rid of doing that way. And that's just stupid. Never made any sense to me. And I'm the digital guy. But to me, it's always made more sense to go, if you want to watch it, in theaters, or you want to watch it on Blu-ray or 4K UHD or digital 4K or subscription or any of these different kinds of ways, I think that's, again, it goes back to that choice. And I think as long as we continue to be able to do the things that we do, and especially being more self-sufficient. So having our own service means that we're not necessarily just reliant on making deals for these titles with other providers. It means that we can make much more of an effort of showcasing these films that we kind of sometimes look when we do sell something off. And you just go, oh man, I really wish we could have had that, because we'd have done a lot more with that film. I think now that's the point. The difference is not going to be, how you watch. It's going to be whose approach is best. And I think we feel very confident, ours is, I think whether it's new or old catalog, that, no one can hold a candle to our physical releases. I mean, that's just face facts. Like, our stuff is simply the best in the market when it comes to any physical product, when it comes to Blu-ray. And on the digital side, when it comes from our service, we've got that same, it may be arrogance, but I would say it's a confidence and a passion into what we do that I would say hands down, we're better than everybody else. We may not be as big, but I would say that we're going to get there, and we're going to get there because we are going to be able to collaborate and work with the fact that we're a digital service, but we're also love having our Blu-rays. And that's always going to work together very, very well, that you may have some stuff on the physical side you won't have on Arrow, but you may have some stuff on Arrow you won't have on physical. But it's like, in a sense, the best way of looking at it is Arrow is also now going to be kind of like an additional part to this experience, that if you love all these kinds of films, you're also going to love all this stuff we're doing over here as well. And it's not going to necessarily cost you a ginormous amount to kind of hang out. And also that's, as Lou was saying, it's a platform where you can come in and have a very different and slightly less oppressive experience. That's not just like, watch this. It's just simply, here's a really fun place where you can come. And I guarantee you, wherever you go on our service, if you go in and to watch something, anything you click on will be absolutely awesome. There's just a guarantee it will be. And you'll click on it and it will be really fun. And you'll watch another film and you'll watch this special feature and you'll go into this space. And, we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that, as you would be, at a film festival like Panic Fest, or if it's in a video store, we're doing the same thing as everyone else. We're just a bunch of people that love these kind of films and love finding new ways of giving people this, platform to just watch and experience something slightly weird, slightly cool, and a really wide selection of films.
Yeah, you don't really, the curation of streaming is pretty rare, and I think I'm just really bouncing through more than I ever have on the Arrow player right now. What's cool is that unlike a lot of people probably just think, oh, it's probably just Shudder and everything's the same as Shudder because Shudder does horror films, but there's not just horror films on here. There's you have westerns, you have a hard Asian cinema, you have all sorts of stuff on here, and it is more heavily curated. You might only have 10 titles in something, but they're all titles I'm like, oh, I've never seen this available before, and I'm sure it's a good quality version. And then anybody who's gonna put Microwave Massacre on there is gotta be on your top list. Let's before we go, let's grab a couple picks that are on Arrow from both of you, just one or two each that are maybe lesser seen movies, or just movies that you love that like The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, for example, or whatever it is.
After you, Daniel, you go first.
Oh man, well, okay. Film number one, without shadow of doubt, is Jesus Shows You the Way to the Highway. One of my all-time favorite films that we have ever had on the service. It's a film we released on our own old service last summer, and has been hands down like one of my most favorite films what I've ever had the pleasure of distributing. It's the perfect level of bizarre and incredible filmmaking and comedy and just incredible use of technology that I've ever seen, and I'm a huge fan of that. And then on the flip side, I guess on something slightly older, I would say Gamera, maybe. That's quite obvious. Everyone's seen that quite a lot. So I would say so. You know what? I think some of the westerns. I think the Sartana films are, up there for me. I've become like quite a big fan of our westerns that we've got in our catalog that I just never were that interested in previously. But I think the Sartana films are just an amazing collection of westerns that are just so badass and only got my attention purely because they've got some of the most incredible film titles that have ever existed for anything that we have. So I definitely pick those kind of one and kind of a collection of films.
Amazing. So I guess what my first pick would be Scary Movie, which we kind of sub-licensed from Agfa, which is amazing. It's kind of got shades of Evil Dead. It's got a little bit of giallo in there. It's a kind of slasher set at Halloween, and it's just so much silly fun. So that would definitely be my first pick. And then to kind of follow on with Daniel, the collection that I think people should watch would be the Stray Cut Rock films. So Miko Kaji in a girl gang kicking ass with a really cool soundtrack. There's action, there's bizarre musical scenes, and there's just really strong females being amazing. And it's definitely something I think more people should be watching.
Awesome. Well, I just added a few of these myself to the list because there is so much cool stuff, and everything's got that awesome artwork that you all are known for. All I ever want is like a million posters. Like when good box art is the reason I'll always watch something. And now it's gonna be, especially on streaming, you don't see people like really think about the box, the streaming artwork that often. And it's nice to see like
that's a big thing for us, man.
Yeah,
that's huge for us. Yeah, though we've spent a long time. So every single one of those artworks, they're actually 4K resolution. So if you manage to get a capable device and a nice sized TV, those artworks look incredible. Like we're trying to make sure that experience, like you would, that it looks really cool and physical, obviously, but when we adapt those artworks to make them really pop on a giant screen TV at that resolution, it looks phenomenal. And that's hands down better than any other service. I can give you that.
Well, thank you both for joining me for this not commercial, I promise, like chat about what Arrow's
Threshold, May
doing
3rd, only on Arrow.
Yeah. Well, and if you're at the fest, obviously you can check out the Stylus and Threshold.
Absolutely.
And then you can use the promo code Arrow Panic for 50% off your first 3 months of Arrow subscription. And it's cheap. It's only like $5 anyways. So you might as well do the year, because I think it's like $50 for the year. And certainly, like, just going through the titles, you're going to want to subscribe, because I don't think, I'd say almost most of these titles are not anywhere else. So thank you both for joining us. And if you're listening, go download the Arrow app right now.